Hey guys, and welcome back. For today's video, we're taking a look at Sagas from the movies, I think the best aging tag group in the game. So if you're wondering which one you need to invest in as a new player, things like that, we're going to take a look at this one and talk about the new free-to-play Piccolo, some of the most recent additions, and how this team is looking currently. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, be sure to recommend some down below in the comments. All right. So the new Piccolo, for the record, we're going to also be doing some comparison stuff. You've probably already seen the title, thumbnail, whatever. We're going to compare this guy to other purple movies and the idea that he may potentially be the most relevant one today. I don't know about individually the best, but most relevant one based on the way that he functions today. All right, so Piccolo is pretty awesome. I did do a guide on how to get him up in stars. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's kind of confusing. It's a very convoluted event where you go here to do that and there to do that, and it's just all over the place. So check that video out. It'll be clickable on the screen in the final 20 seconds. So Piccolo here. Pretty awesome character, does most of what you would want in a character like him. He's a free character, so obviously he's not going to have those crazy high stats, things like that. They're a little bit low. Defense is about average. But anyway, moving on from that, he has a support type as well, so that also is further gimping overall offensive stats because he's not going to lean, one way or the other. But nonetheless, Piccolo has nullify covers. He's got draw speed. He's got a card reload. He's got key gain whenever he draws cards. He has defeated effects. He's got actual support effects. Piccolo's kind of all over the place. He also has shortening sub count, which is all over the place on these new characters, particularly on these movie / superhero characters. It's all over the place. So let's kind of break it down really quickly here. So Piccolo shortens his sub count by 5. That's pretty solid. Shortens ally sub count by 1 here. Plus damage. Also blast armor. Solid. Can also be taught to Shallot. It's not going to be one of the stronger blue cards, but it's going to be a really strong one for utility. I'm going to do another updated 2024, 2023 version of the Shallot best special moves video, so stay tuned for that. All right, so the green card here destroys all of your cards and draws 2 new ones, gets extra key. By the way, if you have no cards, this is where this is at its best, right? We have no cards, you just plus 2 cards, plus key, plus damage, and wouldn't you know it, more ally sub count down. So this guy is designed to just be a utility character that can go off a little bit offensively, and you'll see that here in the main ability where he reloads his cards entirely. Destroy all your cards, draw 4 new ones instead of 2 this time, and he gets plus 20 damage inflicted, can't be canceled, and then picks up nullify covers and cancels his downgrades. The big thing that's kind of missing here is the lack of key gain, but that's in a passive, so we'll take a look at that in a minute, which by the way also pops off whenever he uses the green card too. So really when he uses the green card, he's getting 50 key because of the passive. Pretty strong. Also, you can use this really early, 5 counts in. So we go ahead and scroll down here. We take a look at Piccolo. Applies the following effect itself when this character enters the battlefield, gets key, gets damage, and then also every time he draws a battle card while he's on the battlefield, this will proc whenever he naturally draws a card, or he draws a card through draw speed, or obviously, or if the green or man ability functions and forces a card draw, this will pop. Anyway, he gets plus 10 key and plus 10% damage. So we don't really, the damage is cool, but the key means that he can extend that combo window. So that's the most important thing. The following effects occur every time this character uses a strike or blast card. Plus 10% damage inflicted, increases draw speed, and then gives allies a little bit of damage. We don't really care a ton about that damage. It's 5% for 10 counts. It is what it is. So, you can get a couple cards off, switch to another character. They're marginally better, but maybe it makes a difference. Who knows? Also, shortens ally substitution counts by 1 every time when hit with an enemy's attack while this character is on the battlefield. Activates 10 times. So this effect specifically used to just pretty much only be on the Vegeta clan characters. You remember when those characters popped up, how they would all kind of loop sub count reduction, where they would get hit or their teammates would get hit and they would just kind of go down, like the green Vegeta. I think the Trunks was doing it too, things like that. So nonetheless, Piccolo's doing sub count stuff all over the place, so you can save him if you need to. You can get this guy out of there. Maybe get a special cover change into another character. Speaking of which, Piccolo is another free character with a special cover change. It doesn't combo, but I'll take it as a free character. You can also throw out Go Tanks to eat some hits and pop his effects when he gets low on HP. There's utility and just the ability to switch consistently. But again, Go Tanks and those other characters are doing that amount too. So if it's the opposite perspective, you can throw Piccolo out there and get the defeated buffs, which are at the bottom there, right? So knock back enemies versus strikes, doesn't combo like I said. When he switches to standby, he does restore allies key, gives damage, and does a debuff. So the debuff is particularly relevant because it's an arts power one, so obviously those ones are the new gen debuffs that we have on enemies to help mitigate the damage that they're outputting. But also this one is really strong because if Piccolo does go into a Go Tanks or whatever, like I was just kind of explaining, Go Tanks is just going to tank that much better ultimately. So pretty solid. Also applies the following effects to allies if there are 2 movies, event exclusive, or regen battle members. So on those teams, okay, so they're cutting out Super Warriors, but other than me, no one is really running that team. in any content ever, right? So anyway, I guess not really. Like, you could do event exclusive. Anyway, moving on. So what he's going to do here is he's going to heal his allies by 10% 5 times. So when he switches out on one of these teams, he does 50% health restoration to his allies. That's really strong. And the most important, but probably, like, if you're not a big time player, if you're pretty casual, whatever the case is, obviously that's not a criticism, but you may not understand how powerful this effect right here is. Applies attribute upgrade minus 15% to enemy sustained damage cut effects. So to really make this very quick and short, so the game is heavily offense oriented. I've talked about how defense is pretty much dead on most characters, and the way that they mitigate the fact that defense is mostly dead is they'll give characters mechanics like endurance or arts power debuffs like we saw with Piccolo, or card destroy, key reduction, sealing effects like sealing main ability, sealing rising rush, like all these different little gimmicks, right? That's how they mitigate that. But at the end of the day, characters are getting a whopping, 60% cut, 70% cut on a good day. Maybe some get 50, maybe some of them get 65, whatever. They're in that range. But characters are getting like 3 times the amount to damage. And the offensive stats are naturally, on most characters, higher than the defensive stats. So ultimately, to tie the bow on it, when you can say, I'm going to give my allies the ability to hit through enemy sustained damage cut, which means that it's hitting through their defense, basically. So they have like Piccolo here has 60% damage cut. Well, that's getting reduced by 15%. You see what I'm saying? So giving that to a character like that's highly offensively inclined, like Beast Gohan, well, that's pretty self-explanatory, right? So giving this to allies just on switching out passively is actually ridiculously strong. So there's that. The following effects occur when this character is defeated. So again, you can throw them out there because all the sub-count stuff whenever you really want, basically. All the best characters hide and run away, like Janemba and stuff. Like, they just run away with sub-count stuff, whatever. Am I getting Janemba confused with like Goku and Frieza? Anyway, moving on. Restores allies' health when he's defeated by 10%, gives allies a permanent 25% damage, and then also cancels their downgrades, and also destroys all of your enemies' cards. That's actually really, really strong, because that means that when you reset to neutral, maybe they don't have anything, you might get a free tackle off if you want to, etc. So there's a lot of utility and usability with that. So this is our most latest free-to-play character. I'm not going to do a full-on breakdown for every character in this grouping, but I am going to go ahead and mention some other purple characters and the idea that Piccolo may be the best one to use. Again, I know that when you talk about purple from Sagas and movies, one name really is going to stand out. For the record, this guy is pretty awesome. They kind of shadow nerfed him just after his release because they reduced the rate that you're getting Dragon Balls for like the 5th time, and I still don't notice the difference. Anyway, dude, they've done that so many times. Anyway. So kind of got shadow nerfed, but it's still a really strong character, right? But the most important name that's most relevant, that comes to mind at the time of the recording, isn't going to be anybody other than this guy. So I do want to go ahead and take a look at this guy. And the first thing I'm going to say is, I think this guy, like I said a couple of times, I think this guy is an individually better character, but I think that Piccolo is a better team player. Does that make sense? Because this guy's got one of the most oppressive gauges / effects in the entire game, where he tries to just shut you down completely. Now, there are characters like Vegeta Blue, and that's an extreme rarity case, that can kind of bypass the card destroy, stuff like that. It's not very like all that common, right? But well, the new tag also can pick up like card protection where they can't. That's a new dumb effect that they added. Like, I think Vegeta Blue is the first character with card protection. Anyway, moving on. Still one of the most oppressive effects, right? So it is what it is. But what I will say is this guy is a character that ultra late game, later in the game, whatever the case is also super strong. But I think the idea of pairing this guy with like Beast Gohan and Janemba is strong, yes, but I think it's less appealing than pairing Piccolo with them. And the reason why is because I don't really know that you need 3 flat out damage dealing win conditions. I think there's room when you have a team like Janemba and Gohan that are heavily offense inclined characters. They've got gimmicks, they've got utility and stuff like that, like Janemba's gauge and blah blah blah. And this gauge with Janemba's gauge is also super duper oppressive too. So unless you're trying to run some toxic team like that, that's totally different, right? But I think there's room for a utility character that'll just make those other guys stronger, so that's fair too, right? And then Piccolo also can just be sacrificed whenever you want to, basically, as a defeated effect, and throughout the match he'll be applying damage to his allies, he'll be applying sustainability with the healing, things like that. So he's actually a really, really strong character. But I do want to just briefly go over the kit for this guy. He does have blue card cost reduction on these two. That's pretty good. His green is really, really strong. His blue card is as well. Massive impact plus damage plus key blast armor. This is going to hit way harder than Piccolo's, but I think Piccolo's is just, again, conceptually better outside of the damage. But again, if you're making the argument on damage, then obviously this is the case. But I'm making the argument that I don't know that you need a third character that's going to be a headlining damage dealer. And honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I've used this guy a few times recently, and I have been unimpressed with his defense. It's not his role, but he has been getting absolutely like two-shot, like decimated. Like, it's disgusting what I've been seeing with this guy. I don't even know why. Like, it's just the new characters are just doing too much damage, right? This green is a wallop. I'm not going to read all of this crap. Buys buff effect, nullify cover change, draws a blue, gets damage. According to the number of counts, he gets these vanish restoration, unfavorable elements. There's just too much there. So very good green, obviously. The ultimate here cancels buff effects. That's really strong. Cancels endurance. Also, another thing that's really strong with this guy is the rising rush effect, where what is it? You can't he picks up the endurance nullification on the rising rush, right? And then also picks up the vanish restoration right there. Really strong, picking up that ability to restore vanish in case he happened to somehow miss it, right? Very strong stuff here. And then he gets all these bonuses. He has his own built-in hitting through sustained damage cut effects right here when the battle starts, minus 20%. He has that ultra powerful gauge, insanely long text boxes, my goodness. So all in all, I want to just kind of circle back to you guys and know what you think. Now, again, I'll say this one last time. This guy's approaching a year old in a game with heavy power creep, but he's aged very well. He still can do damage himself, and he has a lot of gimmicks, as you see here. Shortening sub count, destroy your enemy's cards, reduces Dragon Balls, nullify cover changes in two places, right? Nullifies elements. He's just doing everything. As an individual character, he's better. But it's basically a full-on value thing, if that makes sense. So let's go ahead and circle back to the rest of what we're looking at for this grouping. And we have Gohan here, who I want to know you guys' opinion on him. Maybe I need to use him a little bit more. As the Gohan fan, I haven't used him as much because I've actually been enjoying using the Kaioken tag character, the Evolution Kaioken, a little bit more because they're just so awesome. I really like their I don't like playing against it. I hate playing against it, but I love playing with. Their playstyle where it's like we could just go. And Gohan kind of has some of that too. This Gohan is he's like Blue Gohan 2.0, which is not a bad thing. He does a little bit of everything. I really love his constant vanish restoration and just kind of the gimmicks he also has, and just flat out doing all the damage he does. And his blue card hits like a freaking nuke. Like he's awesome. But nonetheless, I think he's an offensive carry character, so that's the point. But I wanted to know you guys' thoughts. This guy's an insane strong character, top 5 at worst. I want to say 3, but top 5 at worst. What do you think? I like Gotenks a lot as well. Only thing I'm missing with Gotenks is the fact he doesn't heal. But spoiler alert, I was just talking about Piccolo, and I don't know that he does heal. Does he heal anywhere? I don't think he does. If he had a party heal right here, like 20% for all allies, obviously including himself, that would be amazing. But spoiler with Piccolo is he does that. Piccolo does that role. So, you could get in a weird situation if you go like Piccolo, Gotenks, and Beast, where it's like all defense, utility, and Beast is your only win condition. Really? Like Gotenks can kind of do it. Piccolo can kind of maybe, pull it out. But Gotenks is your win condition. Or, Gohan is your win condition. And that could be kind of messy, right? That's why, like I've been saying, I've been advocating for at least using Gohan and Janemba because they're so far ahead of the rest of the curve. And now I haven't really talked about like Pikkon and Piccolo. We'll kind of talk about them a little bit here in a moment. But yeah, so anyway, if you happen to be doing those top 3, those first 3, that could work out potentially. I wanted to talk about this Gohan here. Now, the problem with this Gohan, he's incredibly strong, another really strong free character. He's just blast space, and unfortunately, those characters are all pretty much melee / they don't really there's a thing about building mixed teams where it's like melee and strike. You should just lean more into all melee, all strike. But you have gray area with defense and support types where defense typically skews more towards being a melee character, have a little bit higher melee stats. Oftentimes, support characters are a little bit the opposite, but they can function either way. And all the best characters get damage buffs regardless of what cards they're using. So it's just a stat discrepancy thing as to why you would want to lean heavily into one side or the other. And you can use this. Oh, also, it's a card held thing. You don't want to have these double blast. Like in a strike-based deck, you don't really want that. Anyway, so yeah, you can use this Gohan reliably. I think he's really strong, but I don't know that he's best suited on a team with those characters. I think if you were to pair him with some of the other strong blast characters in this grouping, like, I don't know, the freaking Gammas. They also have color counter with him, too. So like, that would work out really well. So I think that's what you're looking for with him. But alas, he's also blue, and you have Janemba, ideally, right? So there's that. If you don't have a blue Janemba, I mean, you could throw that Gohan on any team and I guess be successful, but it's just more or less a value proposition, min-maxing, things like that. Very similar to the Piccolo / Gogeta debate. Not anywhere near as close in my mind, but it's a very similar type of discussion overall. We're not really going to talk about Ader. I think Ader is solid, but I'm not really going to talk about it much. Same goes for Tapion, or that Goku that we talked about. Roshi, not going to talk about him. These are characters that are just kind of, they're kind of niche. Maybe they need to be on a full team with certain characters. Like, you get the point. And I do want to kind of give a little bit of credit to Tapion. I think he's really solid. He actually did make my top free-to-play characters list that I did not that long ago. So let's talk about Piccolo. Now, I don't have Pikkon. Now, this is where things are kind of fun. Shout out, look at all those Pikkons at the bottom. Hello? This is where things are a little bit fun. Because what is the role you want to have accomplished, right? They're both green revival characters. They both function in similar spaces. Here's where things are a little bit different. I had somebody leave a comment the other day saying that they liked using Piccolo more. They thought Piccolo was better and things like that on a video that I did where I talked about Beast Gohan's best teams. I believe that was a video. And I talked about Piccolo versus Pikkon very briefly. I didn't really elaborate much. But I had somebody leave that comment. And I responded saying that I think that's fine. In fact, I'll pull it up live. I thought that was fine because one point I tried to get across in that video was that I think it's okay if you like one character more than the other. That's perfectly fine because, you know, Piccolo's really, really strong relative to what his goal is, right? Or what his role is, excuse me. And same goes with Pikkon. Both of the characters do have their flaws. Both of the characters do have shortcomings. But I think that the discussion between these two is actually particularly close. And I want to kind of just read that comment. It said, I'm running Janemba leader with Orange, Piccolo, and Beast. Works like a charm, and Beast is at 4. Even at 4 is still a problem. I think Piccolo is a better option. More support, disrupt, and healing for the team. A strike setup, and he'd eat damage against Janemba regardless. He's saying a strike setup isn't like a strike team. So that's part of it too. Well, but again, not really because this is a defense type. I just kind of talked about that. Anyway, plus Pikkon Gogeta is blast based. Incorrect, but I'll explain that in a minute. Not a fan of mixing and matching blast to melee. I've talked about that, and that's perfectly reasonable. Plus, my OP is 11 stars with my Pikkon at 7, and OP with his plat is bonkers. I actually didn't really catch that part with the star discrepancy. Also, Piccolo has -5 versus Pikkon Gogeta, who has 2, which is almost useless. And he did the hands in the air emoji. So, let me just say this. If you got a 4-star discrepancy, then go for it. Like, either way, if it's Pikkon at a higher stars or Piccolo, just either way, go for it. I do also want to throw a bone for Piccolo getting a platinum equip, even though his platinum equip is like, it's like, okay. Like, he needed, in my mind, Piccolo needed more cut. Piccolo needs more defense. They do this thing with a lot of revive characters where they purposely make them like kind of glass, paper thin, glass cannon type characters, going all the way back to Cell. He was, oh my God, Cell would die so fast whenever he got there, but he would do good damage, right? So anyway, they do this thing with them, and they're doing it here with both of these characters too. Like, post-transformation, this guy picks up like 15% cut, and Pikkon, I think, picks up 10% cut, so it's just kind of weird. And it's also kind of interesting because Piccolo's got like this defensive gauge, but he's a melee character. It's very reminiscent of Broly, except I felt like Broly performed that role better overall. Now Piccolo has the revive, so that's one thing, right? That's totally different and better than anything Broly really has. And I'm talking about the Ultra Broly, by the way. But like, Broly was so tanky and so well versed on the defensive side, and his gauge was so impactful, and he could get it more than once, I believe. It was so impactful that I just thought he was a defense type all the time. And I would always remember he's a melee, and then I always think his defense, just because he would work like that. Piccolo's not really that well versed on the defensive side. Piccolo would kind of get blasted. And let me read my response to that comment. I said, I don't mind you liking Piccolo more, but you're wrong about a few things, and we can break this down a bit. Firstly, Pikkon and Gogeta is a defense type. They function well with both types of cards. And if you look at their kit, they're very similar to like the red Gogeta from Once Upon a Time, where he's getting the strike and blast depending on which damage he's doing or which card he's using, right? So that guy was melee, but they're defense type, so it doesn't really matter. The stats aren't like widespread difference. It just use whatever you get and you're fine, so they're versatile. That's the point. You're not really mixing anything. And I said -5 is better in terms of sub count because Piccolo does have the -5 sub count thing and the other character does have -2. But I said it's also irrelevant. And the reason why is because all these movie characters shorten ally sub count. and a few of them by 10. And it's true, because we look at a character like Gotenks. This guy is insane with the sub count reduction. He's doing 10s everywhere. Oh, I see his 10s right there. That's not it, but he's doing 10s everywhere. Where are the 10s at? Main ability and then unique, right? Where's it at? Gotenks, stop making me look crazy. Stop making me look crazy. Where is it at? Here it is at the bottom. When he activates the endurance, he does a 10 count sub count, or 10 reduction right there. There's another one in here. Yeah, right down here. Another 10 count. So like, it's not really a huge deal if a character's taking off 2 or 5. It's good, it's better, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't really matter much on this type of team, because you have characters that are just taking off 10. So whatever, right? Like, it doesn't really matter. And I said also, Pikkon heals and gives allies damage support that can't be canceled, which he does. Also, Pikkon has a lot of disruption between both forms, while also having better sustain than Piccolo. Pikkon has got, I think, less cut. I think he's got 10%, like I mentioned, but he's a defense type, higher defensive stats. You get the point. So he's got a little bit better sustain, and again, he does have the healing effect as well, some support. Also got a lot of disruption there. So the point is, they're very similar characters. So, I mean, you can just see just by looking at the traits, very similar characters. They got a lot of the same stuff. So, more or less, I don't really know that it's wrong to pick one or the other. I think what you're looking for here is a couple of things. First and foremost, star discrepancy. Secondly, the unique equip on Piccolo, like I said, it's kind of whatever, but it does make him better. It is strong, and it is a feather in the cap for him versus Janemba, because Janemba simply does not have one of those. It is what it is. So anyway, that's one thing you're looking at too. So star discrepancy, the equip, things like that. And ultimately the team composition. Pikkon and Gogeta can be on either team, but if you have Piccolo and you meet some of those other criteria and you're on a full melee team, then go for it. My only problem with Piccolo is that he just, oh my god, he gets shredded. I'm gonna be honest, I can't even get Piccolo's gauge half the time. I just can't. I actually can't. Like, he just gets decimated. So when he gets the gauge, that's really strong, but he gets freaking decimated. So yeah, I don't know, just unfortunate. So let's kind of talk about the more of the other characters from superheroes / recently with movies. And I guess the main point is that all the characters that we've talked about on the top like 3-4 rows so far are all really, really strong characters. There are some other characters that came out earlier this year that are solid. I like this guy's support a lot, the Red Gohan, but now with 3 red movie that are like, there's just too much red going on here. You're just not using them, I guess. it's just not, you're not really doing it. But I do like the glasses Gohan a lot. But if you need a support character, go for it. Or Pan. I like Pan still a lot too. Anyway, the Gammas. Easily a top 5 character in the game. They, some people will have them peaking really high on the list, like 2 or 3, things like that. They're super strong. And I just want to say a round of applause to them, because they kind of fell off because the Vegito Blue thing, and then they also did not have a reverse elements, and I was very critical of the devs of the game at the time, because that was very clearly a choice not to give them that, or neutral. Well, they get neutral on the Gamma Breaker, right? But anyway, or the Core Breaker, but they pretty much didn't do any of that stuff. No, they also get it for like a couple accounts on the tag, right? Anyway, the point is, they didn't give them reverse because Vegito existed. They do that sometimes with other characters where they don't want them to overshadow the certain character. They do that from time to time. It is what it is. But I actually don't really mind that they don't have the reverse, because sometimes reverse kind of sucks, because you've got dual type advantage, yes, but you also got dual weakness. So it's just a game of chess when you use a reverse tag character. So anyway, this character is super strong. The only problem with this character is that they don't really want to... Ooh, that Gamma 1 art's so good, too, back there. I've never seen the Gamma 1. They don't want to really function too much alongside a lot of their other most recent releases, because a lot of them have just been melee characters. And again, there are some flexible ones like the Gotenks and Piccolo, but the strongest characters here, like Janemba and Gohan, are going to be more melee-based characters. So, I mean, you can use them together, but you get the point. So, incredible character. Also throwing a spotlight to this guy... Actually really strong. He's got a wonky support type of playstyle where he does certain things at certain times. He's kind of weird, but nonetheless, the final counter with Cell Max still can hit like a freaking truck. Still really, really strong. So again, we still have a core team here, or a core of characters, whether it's one full team or whatever, but a core of characters here that's really strong and versatile. And circling back to what I said in the beginning of this video, I wanted to make it very, very clear that the point of this also was that the characters that we have here, do make up pretty much the best aging team you want to invest in, things like that. And I haven't even hit the other characters that came out prior. Like I talked about Gogeta. We didn't talk about the earlier superhero characters like this Blue Beast Gohan. You can kind of use a little bit. Some of the other characters in this grouping that could potentially still find use depending on certain matchups or whatever level you play at. Like if you're not playing high-end PvP, if you're playing certain rank differences, like that does matter. Some of these characters can still be useful, even though the vast majority of characters, you know, aren't really at certain levels, or people will tell you they're not, etc. Some of these characters can still be used. Like I think Cooler can still be effective. I think Tapion, the yellow one, can even still be effective with his final counter. I think the purple Gohan right there, the revival Gohan at the top row, can still be effective. These two Zenkais, the Gogeta and Janemba, were actually really good. They can definitely still be used actually today, in my opinion. I think that a number of characters here are really strong, and this is a super duper well-versed group of characters that I think that people should be investing in going forward, focusing on, etc. There are also other free characters, other good characters in here that I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know what you guys think.